there, welcome back to Celtic Order, the podcast. As always, I'm Stevo Matt. It's a warm welcome you all back to the channel here for another wee weekly roundup where we take all the rumours, all the gossip, all the garbage that you get with pre-seasons, bring them all together and we discuss them. We give you our thoughts on it for what that's worth, of course, and we'll look for your feedback on it as well. Full house tonight. All the CWO boys are back in town. Right-hand man, Paddy boy up top, and their fellow bald brothers, Joe and Paul D down bottom there. It's a Sunday. It's been a decent day. We were out having fun, running a wee art exhibition. It was a good laugh. But after it, guys, how are we all doing? How's the rest of your Sunday been so far, Paddy?
Yeah, well, it's an absolutely fantastic. Came home, spent some time with the family. Lovely meal, things like that. And then, time to talk Celtic. So, couldn't ask for a better day.
And about it. Yourself, Paul, do you enjoy today's festivities?
Yeah, brilliant. Great to obviously for the first time meet Paddy and Joe and really get the kind of pod guys together. So that was great from my point of view. And been a quite quiet day, to be honest. And here we are back online, do what we do best.
Yeah, and Joe, good to have you back. A wee bit of a holiday for this podcast with all the life madness. So warm welcome back, mate.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I've missed it, boys, but great day. The rest of my day was filled with still being busy, unfortunately, and ripping apart my back garden. But apart from that, it's been fantastic. And as Paul said, great to meet everyone and really get a good roundup of all of us in one go.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, as we were saying there, we were at a wee art exhibition day. You've been watching our socials. We've been pumping out there. It was, of course, the last day of the Artful Codgers art exhibition at Summerlee Heritage in our native Coat Bridge. That was, of course, put together by Celtic sport artist Jim Scullion and his two good friends, absolute legend Danny McGrain, and everybody's favourite Scottish Celtic comedian is, of course, Tony Roper. They've been putting together this art exhibition. They've been doing work in at Celtic Park, and this was a culmination, an exhibition for a couple of weeks down at Summerlee with all the sales and proceeds going to the Celtic FC Foundation. An absolutely brilliant day, so well attended. Thank you to everybody that went down there, and also thank you to everybody that went down there and said that we're directed here by our good sales and Paddy's efforts out there on the TikTok. Phenomenal. The amount of people that were turning up, purchasing stuff. I think they sold about 5 or 6 paintings today. All that's going to that fantastic cause. And of course, we will keep you updated with the outcomes of that. Great to meet Tony. Great to meet Danny. And of course, it's always a pleasure to meet Jim. So fortunately, or maybe unfortunately for him, he's known me since I was a wee boy. And I used to annoy the shit out of him and his missus staying there every other weekend. So it was nice to be able to speak to them and be around them and help them as a grown-up. But it was brilliant, guys. You enjoyed it. And Paul, shows what you bought today, mate. What did you get from them?
Oh, just what happens I have here. I'm holding my prized possession from today. The Warrior.
Daizen Maeda, absolute belter. If you want that,
beautiful.
And again, funds will go where it needs to go. jimscullion.co.uk. On there, you can get A4, A3 prints. Even you can commission the good man himself if you want a bespoke piece. And of course, contact him. You can go and pick them up for his gaff, or he'll send them out to you. So there you go. Get involved with that. Get a bit of art, Celtic in your life. That's what it's all about. So anyway, let's get down to business, boys. But before we do the housekeeping, welcome to every single one of you who are watching us, whether you're watching it as it pops up, whether you're watching it late at night, whatever you're doing. Thank you for returning. If you're a continued subscriber, thank you very much. If you're new, hit the subscribe button. That'll cost you absolutely none. Helps us out. We're on multiple platforms on X, a CW Pod 1888, Blue Sky, Spotify. We're on TikTok. The famous TikTok. Everybody loves it, it seems. But what we want you to do is going to put a wee challenge out to you. Tell us how you connect with Celtic World Order. How did you find us? Is it TikTok? Is it Facebook? Is it Blue Sky? Is it X? Whatever. We want to know where people are coming to watch us for. Get those numbers pumping. So let's get down to it, boys. Quick whistle-step tour of the rumours. Some are garbage. I'll be honest with you. Some of them I think are absolute pie-in-the-sky nonsense. And one or two might have a bit of meat on the bones. We'll start hot at the top. Paddy, defensive midfielders. It is the one thing that Celtic needed. We spoke about the potential of Sidibe. We've mentioned them a few times. That's calmed down a wee bit, but still, knowing the low value of that, it could still happen. But there's another name that we're going to talk about, which is Demir Tignaz, young Turkish boy. We'll give you the details, but I just want your thoughts on it. In terms of what Celtic need during the summer, bearing in mind we need a striker and the problems at the back, how important is a defensive midfielder?
Oh, it's pivotal. It's always something that you need on your side. It's like you say, it's that old number 6, an old number 6 type player, a type of Peter Grant sitting in there, somebody that's going to sit deeper and do a bit of defensive work as well, because you can't always rely on your captain Callum doing that as well. Callum obviously likes to push forward, he likes to get involved in the play, but you need somebody who's going to break it up. You need a stalwart in there. When we spoke about Sidibe, I said he was like a Wanyama type player, and by that I meant he was tall, he was a unit, he was big, and he wouldn't be scared to get stuck in, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with him is obviously he was playing at second division France, and
yeah,
looked at him and you're going, yeah, brilliant, but I mean, why has he never really progressed from there? The young Turkish lad that we're looking at now, yes, ticks all the boxes. We've seen the YouTube videos, looks good. I can really good, and I keep saying that about things. You look at a player and you go, God, he looks brilliant, and then you get them in and it turns out it's Joey Barton. Do you know what I mean? You can't remember him, players and things like that. I hope the scouting system's done us proud. It's a position that I feel that we really, really need. If we can get a strong defensive midfielder in, then I think it would obviously tighten up the defence as well. I think if you've got somebody in front of you that you can rely on, it makes your job that wee bit easier, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. And do you think, Joe, in terms of this, where we need it, obviously I'll ask you a question I think I'll know the answer to right away, is the talk of Sidibe, it's quieted down, but with how inexpensive that is, that's going to be quite a cheap one. I believe that he's looking to leave. You're talking it could be up to 1.5, £2 million for a guy like that. This guy, the Turkish chap's looking a bit more value, if you will. There's maybe talk around sort of 8 million potentially there. Would Celtic do the unthinkable and sign up both these guys, bearing in mind the amount that we have in the midfield already?
Yeah, that for me is the big problem. We have a lot of midfield players as it is. Even if Hatate is, where the rumours are going, leaving us as well. I know that breaks your heart, Paddy. I'm sorry to say it. But even if that was the case, I think we would still be inundated with midfielders, and that it would just not work as a unit and as a team. I mean, how do you even practice having 6 midfielders in the one go? You know, it's just not something that is viable for me at the minute, despite it being a very cheap deal on one side and a little bit more expensive on the other. Yes, it's good to have a backup for your backup, but I can't see Celtic ever doing that, because they seem to be a little bit scared to take the defensive midfield position anyway, for some reason. Maybe they've had bad experiences that we've not seen, but you know, for us, we're screaming out for it as fans.
Well, you say that we wouldn't do that, and I agree. My head tells me that's the case. But bear in mind, we do still have Kwon on the books. Now, he will be coming back to us for all intents and purposes. If you were to move on Kwon, for example, Joe, who's meant to be a defensive midfielder, let's be honest, but I don't think he's ever going to reach that level for us, and you were to pass him on to another team, would there then be room for it to? Because I mean, at Celtic looking at it, we wouldn't do it because Quan's come back, but Quan's got a relatively long contract still at Celtic. So my point being, get rid of him, bring in potentially, let's just say Sidibe, who's going to be, on fairly inexpensive wages, maybe Quan-esque wages, but you might be able to actually use him.
Well, there is that possibility, but then think about, why is Quan out on loan anyway? So, well, exactly, and you're going to either have to make the difficult decision of, right, we loan out an actual pretty decent player in the meantime, or we keep him there and he sits benched for 60, 70, 80% matches. And I just don't think, although we have got a bit of a history for doing that, the likes of the Baniak and the Vrotsky and a little bit of a little bit of everyone, despite us having a bit of history in doing that, I'd like to see a bit of development within the team to not do these kind of things. Everyone needs to move forward and get away from these bad habits. I think it's one of the biggest things that kills us sometimes, and why we lose out on some fantastic players and some great opportunities.
It's like we would say before, Joe, it's back to the bringing on like for like. I think that's what you're getting at there, isn't it? Taking off a player 100%. That's got a good standard and then bringing on someone who matches that standard, and that's what we like.
There's no point in stockpiling guys, and let's look at this guy, and I'll give you the first hit of the bat here, Paul, with him. It is, of course, Demir Tiknaz. He's a 20-year-old. He's an international at the unders level for Turkey, defensive midfield. Now, again, we look at, and I've looked at the stats on him, I've looked at the YouTube videos, the famous YouTube videos, and again, you can only judge for those wee snippets what you see, but 6'4", young, decent enough pedigree. He looks, to me, at least with what I've seen in those videos, he looks powerful. He looks quite dominant in his position, and more importantly, he looks composed and has good positional awareness. Now, there's a couple of layers to this deal, which is very interesting. Would it be a spanner in the works? I don't necessarily think so, but there's a few things we'll run through them. So he's currently on loan at Rio Ave in Portugal. They finished 11th this season, but his parent club is actually Besiktas. Now, he's been at them since 2021 season. He's made 102 career appearances in all clubs, including his loan and time at Besiktas, 6 goals, 4 assists. Now, since he's been at Rio Ave, 24 to 25 season, 33 appearances for them, 4 goals, 2 assists. Now, with his time at Besiktas over since 2021, he's had 29 appearances for them, and that all came in the 23 to 24 season. So he's had a bit of a break in the team. For whatever reason, squad quality, whatever they've got, they've moved him on to Rio Ave. Now, Rio Ave have an option to buy that they must trigger on Tuesday. This Tuesday that's coming. They have to do it. That's the word. By Tuesday's the deadline to get him. And if they want to do that, it'll cost them €5 million, which is about £4.5 million thereabouts. They've got to do that. If they don't, then it would revert back to what Besiktas perceive his valuation to be, which is circa 8 million. So a bit of a strange one that he's went out on loan. They value him higher, but you can buy him cheap. So that maybe tells you where he is in their pecking order. Has he been tearing up trees for Rio Ave? Hard to tell. But it would mean Celtic are said to have, and it's came from reports over there, that Celtic have made an approach to Rio Ave because they're in the box seat, which I found interesting. But in terms of the quick profile there, Paul, he's got Champions League qualifying experience and he's got a Conference League campaign under his belt. So he ticks off a couple of boxes, and as I say, he's 14 international caps for the unders of Turkey. He's actually been in the full squad for the 2 friendlies. I think it's the USA and Mexico.
I'm quite interested in this proposed move. 2 good teams that he's at, Besiktas and Rio Ave. For his age, he's getting good experience. His numbers are relatively good for a player of that age. It looks as if there's something in it when we've went straight to Rio Ave. We're not wasting time in going to Besiktas and trying to barter some kind of deal for the future or a sell-on and whatever else is involved. From what I've seen of him on the videos, he looks very powerful, very direct. He would suit exactly what I think we need in our midfield. Just depends what kind of deal can be done. I don't think a player of that age should be something at £8 or £9 million. If it's around about the 4 or 5 and there's prospect there, then I think it's something that could happen. But it'd be interesting to see if this is something we're going to see players, as I was saying in the last video, that we're going to see players that are properly linked players, that there's homework been done, and it isn't just us flirting with clubs and getting in and trying this slow malaise approach that we do with transfers. We need to have done our groundwork and go in and sign players that we know that can improve this squad.
I mean, Paul, how assertive do we need to be? Do you have any concerns over that, line, that chain, if you want to call it? If you're buying a house, it's like you're in a chain before you get what you want. Now, Rio Ave, if they want to take him, they're obviously going to get a cut price deal. Being a team that are sitting maybe 11th, well, they did finish 11th in the Portuguese league. They're not exactly, big fish, and they might just see that as a great opportunity to make a quick flip on some. Now, of course, if they're then going to double their money, that would seem more than reasonable. But would you have any concerns over that potential doubling their money could grow arms and legs? We find ourselves in another Arne Engels situation, or again, coming back to what we said in the last show, if you're good enough, you'll play. So would you be comfortable if it started to go up again?
If I'm being honest, I would have to be pretty guarded around ending up in this, where is the ceiling in terms of a 20-year-old player? But we have to be realistic and say, this is our figure. It depends again, what level we've done of scouting this guy. If he is the player that we hope, in terms of that position that we really need somebody in. The midfield at our end needs tidied up. We need to have a bit of a there will be movement out, there will be movement in, but what we need to do is make sure, as I say, the players that we're targeting and bringing in, we're at a place where, the homework's done, everything's ready to go. This summer's massive, and I really hope we're not embarking on a tentative. We try to get this over the line, we try to get that over the line. To answer your question, no, I don't want us to get into the higher ends of £10 million for a 20-year-old. There's got to be a level of sensible, approach to a player that's got potential, that looks good on YouTube, don't we all? And that we have to be astute and just not end up getting into a bidding war. Depends who all wants a cut as well. Do Rio Ave want something out the deal, which they will, and what's Besiktas getting out it? Where are we going to end up paying the majority of the money?
Well, Paddy, the thing that throws maybe a wee spanner in the works as well is that Lille are sniffing around as well. Now, let's just say Rio Ave don't, for whatever silly reason, trigger that option to buy. They don't do that. They don't get him cheap. See if he then falls back to Besiktas. Now, I think it would be fair to say that Celtic versus Rio Ave, for the finances and the deal and the package and the prestige, it would be blown out the water. But if Lille come into the mix and it becomes something of a bidding war, how imperative is it for Celtic, if they're genuinely interested and they choose these deadline passes, that they are straight on it at an early stage to Besiktas and thrashing out the numbers?
Yeah, we have to. How many times have we get caught short? You just need to rhyme off, guys. John McGinn. There's the main one for me, was John McGinn. We tried to penny pinch. What was it, for the sake of 200 grand or something? We lost out on him. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous when you think on it. We've got the money, we've got the finances. You just need to look at our Champions League run last year. The amount of cash that we made off of that, the people that were selling. We've made a substantial amount of money. We've got it there. If this guy ticks the boxes, if he's what our scouting guys have been looking at, or Dr. Tisdale, if it's one of his that he's been telling us about, then listen, throw the book at him. Tell Besiktas, right, what do you want from 8 million? Right, there's 8 million. Don't, like Paul says, get caught out the other side of it going, oh yeah, we'll give you 7, and then Leo come in and say, yeah, we'll give you 8, and then we go, right, we'll give you 9. Ask them what they want. What's your valuation of the player? If it is, like you said, it could be 8 million, I'd pay 8 for the guy if that's what they're asking. I just don't want to get caught out by this point when you're chasing, and then you end up needing a player. If we do, like Joe said, sell Hatate, and you end up needing to replace somebody. As soon as you say that you need something, Norwich done it with us with Adam Maeda. And we could have got Maeda for 3 million, 4 million, and we end up paying 9. And that was simply because they knew they had us bent over a barrel. It was simple. They went,
demand.
They'll pay what they want. So I want us to go out there and get the business done quick. Yeah, we don't want to have so many people on the books. We don't want to overdo the books and stuff, but get the business done. If these are guys who you've highlighted for the team to make the team better going into the next season, then do it. I'd be quite happy with that.
We always sit here and we talk, particularly last season, we're saying about trying to find guys' positions. Do you think, Joe, if we have a natural defensive midfield, a natural number 6, let's just assume we get this chap. This is who it's going to be. It's going to be Tirnaz, comes in, and we'll still get the same midfield we've got now. Just throw it to you. How does that, in your eyes, affect what Celtic's midfield would be? We start with 3. You've got to think that the defensive midfielder that you might have paid a pretty penny for is going to be slotted straight in there. So who does that? Who does that push out?
It's a difficult one, but I think that it's likely to push out more often McGregor than anyone else. And I know that a lot of people will be like reacting harshly to that, but McGregor is getting up there in age. He's had a couple of injuries and everything as of late as well, so he will be looking to an extent wind down a little bit himself, I'm sure. Despite he's still got the drive, he's still got the hunger, we know that. And I don't think there's many people out there that have a bad taste in their mouth about him with the final and everything like that. But maybe something that softened the blow a wee bit of it will be him coming out more often. Other than that, I think then you take out Engels, and I think that's really the only two that you could. The rest of our midfield is kind of imperative. I'm not saying that Engels and McGregor are not, but they have their own way of chasing down the hard ones, chasing down the areas on the opposition, chasing and closing them down close to their own box. Whereas if we've got a defensive midfielder, he can wait that extra minute or so. He can wait for the ball to come a bit closer to where we need it to be, so it spreads their team out and we can get it back up the pitch and into the likes of Daizen Maeda, etc.
Yeah.
So see, on that, right, I just want to kind of jump in. I disagree with you. I really do, mate. I think Callum McGregor, for me, he's a stalwart. Even though, I seen it points of last season, he did drop off a little bit in some certain games and stuff. But although I love Rio Hatate, for me, he would be the one to make way for that. If you've got a defensive midfielder in there, I feel like then Callum would step in to the kind of front left, essentially, or front right, and then you would have Arnie
In
Engels
fairness,
in there.
In my defence there, what I was considering was actually Rio not being there. So I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that's
so
a
being
fair
out,
point.
yeah.
That's a fair point.
If
Totally
that's
take
the
that on
case,
board.
then obviously you would have Arnie Engels and Callum McGregor in there anyway. But for me, I think it would be Rio that would have to make way for a player like that to come in. Either that, or you play more people in midfield. You go a different formation, which you can't really see Brendan doing.
Nah, because he want that. But anyway, let's keep ourselves in Turkey, because from talk of folk coming in, there's the dreadful talk of Daizen Maeda. And Paul, this is one that sort of raised a few eyebrows, and certainly from my perspective, firstly, of the supposed bid that has been thrown out quickly without discussion, which is from Fenerbahce, said to be interested in, of course, Daizen Maeda. And the opening gambit was £8 million, which is quite frankly absolutely laughable.
What
However,
game did you
Paul,
want him for?
however, this reports that have been coming out suggest that Celtic are looking for 21, which also seems a bit thin to me.
Absolutely. I genuinely hope that me buying this picture hasn't caused some kind of glitch in the matrix.
Yes.
I got a autographed Kyogo jersey, and it was away a matter of months later. So, with that in mind, hopefully I've not put the complete jinx on anything to do with our beloved Daizen. He will be attracting.
That picture back.
Aye. It will be attracting a lot of suitors, a lot of interest, given his overall performance, his flexibility, and his versatility. Dare I say, the 21 million, no, it's an odd figure. Just an odd. That just sounds like something that's been made up by a journalist again. I don't think that will be something the club. I mean, is that legit? Is that came from the club, or has it just been reported?
It's one of these ones when it comes, it says reports suggest that Celtic would be satisfied. Again, that's the thing. It's one of these where it's where do these figures get pulled from? It's hard to tell, but we certainly know that 20 always seems to be the Celtic sweet spot.
Yep.
Travelling back and forth.
Walks the dog at his head of security at Celtic Park.
Aye. Travelling back and forth from here to Japan, the amount of times that the Japanese players do it is a shift, and we've then at some points then relied on Daizen or whoever else, Rio, more so Daizen, to be ready and get into big high pressure games. And it must be, although Daizen is an absolute athlete, it must be taxing. So part of me thinks, some of these players probably spend a few years over here and then think, right, maybe move a bit closer back to your home. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I hope that he does, choose to stay with us for another good couple of seasons. But realistically, there will be interest.
One of the things we've always championed about Daizen Maeda, now he done an interview, we got that sort of last week, we had sort of typical mid-season interviews. It was Adam Ida, it was Daizen Maeda. Now Ida just gave standard flary how he thought it was a good season for him, addressed all the sort of chat around about the video and stuff, and deflected that way. He said he was happy with his 20 goals and so on and so forth. Maeda, very similar vein. He was enjoying his football, and he says he hopes that he can score more goals next season. He never really mentioned Celtic in it, but I kind of, suggested that he wants to be around. So take that. But one of the things, Paul, that we've always laid thick on was how much he seems to have bought into the environment, the welcoming nature. He'd been at Celtic, he'd been in Glasgow, and really settled down and integrated in with his family. Now, not to generalise or throw things out about Turkey, but from my looking at it, it's a different kettle of fish over in Turkey now. See the fanatics and the maniacs of the rivalry over there. It's slightly more ramped up than it is, shall we say, in Glasgow. It's a lot more volatile, perhaps a lot more hostile for a footballer. And do you think do you see that sort of real powder keg of what Fenerbahce, Besiktas, all those kind of teams that have got over there? Is that a real family, settled down, live a kind of nice, quiet, walking around the park life that maybe he's been accustomed to.
You've hit the nail on the head. Walking around the park, having good advice that he does like that. I've seen his social media. He does like a wee stroll around the Botanics and stuff like that. Who can blame him? As much as I personally, staying in Glasgow, give the place bad press, staying in Scotland, it is a good place in terms of, we've seen it before, players that have came here for various countries and they all rant and rave about how much they love staying here. And even the Goldfish Bowl of Glasgow, they thrive on it. I think what he gets from us in terms of the big events, the big Champions League nights, all the boxes are ticked. He's got big rivalries, he's got big derbies, he's got success. Why would you want to, undo any of that and move away and start again? Just at the wee end as well. I mean, there's a lot of factors.
Do you, Paddy, buy into any of that? I mean, again, but I know we're generalising the reputations of leagues, but the Turkish league's a basket case, and it's cutthroat, and it's volatile, and it's pressure beyond pressure. Now, I'm not saying that players don't thrive on pressure, but what I am saying, from what you get, this picture of Maeda being this mild-mannered family guy that likes this community spirit and everything that goes playing at Celtic, being around Glasgow, and they're just getting transported to something completely different. You're not exactly in a war zone, but at times it must feel that way from a footballing standpoint.
Yeah, you've seen it before, the atmosphere, obviously, Champions League games when English teams and Scottish teams and stuff are going out there, the old welcome to hell always comes back. Remember Galatasaray against Man United when they went in there and it was an absolute...
Chairman's running out with handguns on the pitch and all that stuff.
Pretty much, mate. Honestly, I mean, it's madness. It's absolutely ridiculous when you think back. But looking at it from a kind of standpoint of view, obviously, Fenerbahce are a good club. Jose Mourinho in charge there still, isn't he? So, working under a manager like him...
he's not going to Rangers, no?
Well, he's not went to Rangers. Apparently, it was between him, Ancelotti and Russell Martin. So, they've gave it to the best choice. But yeah, working under a player coach like Jose Mourinho would be good, I think, for Daizen Maeda. I think he'd do well there. But yeah, the aspect after the football, off the pitch side of it, I don't think would appeal to Daizen. Like we say, he loves Glasgow, his family love Glasgow. You see them at the games every single week. His wee girl up banging the window in the director's box just behind the main stand, and he's got his song, he loves it. He said in that interview that you commented as well, we'd said about getting 20 goals, and he says, yeah, next year I'll get 30. And we're like, brilliant. That's exactly what you want to hear from somebody like that. And I fully expect him to be at Celtic. The 21 million, I don't know where it's come from. That to me is just a figure that's been plucked out of the sky. I think Celtic value him a hell of a lot more than that. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see an extension on his contract, because I know that he does want his wage to be looked at because of his
so he should
contributions, and do you know what? Fully deserved. Nobody in that squad deserves it more, in my opinion.
I'll chip in.
Do you think, Joe, that again 20 million I feel is low, but given the length of his contract, I think it's like 2 seasons, which is still quite a lot. Like, does 20 million maybe seem generous contextualising that front, or do we just simply look at it 2 seasons, but look at the last one he had?
Well, exactly. I think he's proved his worth, and we all know that. And I think that his true valuation would be somewhere in the region of 24 to 25, and that perhaps it's leaked out. I think that would be being fair, because when he's been played through the middle, that's when his biggest and best performances have really, really shone through. When he's dropped onto the wing, yes, he's still phenomenal, and we absolutely still love him, and he still creates some opportunities, but it's not as frequent. So, I understand if you're selling him on as a winger, then fair enough. If you're selling him as a striker, then that's when I think, if he was a fully fledged striker, you could ask for the closer to 30 million. But he's going to be sold on as a winger if he's going to be sold on as anything. The fact of the matter is, Fenerbahce are not going to come back from an £8 million offer. They're not all of a sudden going to jump up by 13, 14 million. Just
they're not Celtic then, they're not going to get rushed into buying somebody, is that what you're saying?
I'm pretty damn sure of it in any case, because I don't think there's anyone else that deals like us at times. So, I think that's just not going to happen. It's not in the cards. Now, whether they've put in that bid because they're anticipating 4, 5, maybe 6 other teams also putting in a wild bid too at some point to create and start off some sort of bidding war, then fair enough. Good tactics. They may and could come out on top of it in that case. But I can't see anyone trying to pay that money when he's had a phenomenal one season and the other 2 just good seasons, just decent seasons kind of thing.
Yeah, steady enough.
We'll see how it goes. We'll see. But for
Well,
me, as everyone said there, he's comfortable, he's happy. Let's try and keep him that way. Up the wages. We know he deserves it, so give him it. I understand it.
Well, do you know, Joe, I'm glad you said about the way that we do business, because it's a nice wee sort of mid-break, a wee segue into something a bit different. It's not about transfers, it's not about things, but it maybe shines a light on perhaps the way Celtic do their business. Now, I don't know if you've checked this out. It's, of course, about Ange Postecoglou. I know folks say what we're talking about him for, but I think this was an interview that he done that I thought, I'm not sure. I'm conflicted about that. And I think, and we look at the summer transfer window and we're all holding our breath and we're thinking and trying to surmise what's going to happen. How are the club going to act? Are they going to do something they don't normally do? Are they going to splash the cash? Are they going to post a net spend where they've actually spent more than they've went out the way, so on and so forth? Ange Postecoglou interview. Now, the now freshly sacked Ange Postecoglou, I must say. I am, and I'm not surprised. I feel that he probably should have been given another chance. I know they had injuries, but I suppose when you look at the amount of millions that he spent, injuries aside, you finished 17th. Winning the Europa League's brilliant, and it gave them maybe what they wanted, but you finished 17th. So I can maybe understand that's the way it is. Cutthroat down there. But anyway, that's not about what we're talking here. So does this interview, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest you go and check it out. It's very, very interesting. So what am I talking about here? Well, he talks about how he got to Celtic, and it's quite interesting. His time over in Asia, keeps knocking on the door. He's about 30 plus knockbacks from teams in England and Europe, and he's been trying to get in, keeps getting told he's not have a European experience, so on and so forth. Now he says the day before that he gets the call for Celtic, he's lined up with he's about to give in, throw in the towel, he wants to give up, desert, go away from Marinos and just come over here, locate, and try his luck. He'll take anything, League 1, League 2, wants to get his foot in the door. He gets an offer from AK Athens the day before, or it looks like he's going to get it. They pivot and they go somewhere else. He was down to the final 2, and then the next day, out the blue, he gets a phone call from his agent. Celtic are interested. Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He then gets put on a Zoom call. I know that he's long distance now, but this is the context. A Zoom call with Dermot Desmond, and he says, we have a long chat, and he says to me, we've been tracking your career via the City Group links. We know who you are, knows a bit of his football, talks to him. And at the end of the Zoom call, he basically says, Asim, I'm happy, I like what I hear. I'll speak to the board, I'll speak to CEO, I'll speak to our board, talk to you, down, goes away. Now, Ange says he goes and he talks to his missus, and he says at first, I think this call's going to be 10, 15 minutes, take the kids out of the house. And when he comes back, says, I think I've got a chance here. I really think I've got a chance. Now, he's expecting nothing here. He's expecting to just cast the net and go over to Europe and try to get a job anywhere. But out of nowhere, Celtic call him. He then has a second Zoom call with the CEO and other board members. I believe maybe at that time that probably would have been, what's his face? No, not Nicholson. The ill-fated Dom Mackay.
Yeah.
So anyway, he has a chat with them, and at the end of it, they go, right, that's brilliant. We're happy with you. We'll send the details. That's it. And then the next day, he's getting on a plane, and he's coming over, and he's signing for Celtic. Now, as I said, I'm conflicted over this one, guys, because it sounds tin pot as fuck. Excuse my French.
Yeah. On it as well. I mean, when you think, when you think back about it, Stevo, like Celtic, in my opinion, had all their eggs in the one basket. All their eggs were for Eddie Howe. That was it.
And he was the guy that
we wanted. He talks about that at the start of the interview. Yeah. So that was our problem there. It was the same situation where we found ourselves paying over the odds for Daizen Maeda. We then found ourselves in a shit show because, oh no, wait a minute. We've been made look like tools here because we've had everything waiting on this guy, and suddenly Ange just get a phone call saying, listen, mate, we've been tracking you. You're our first choice. Wink, wink. And you come. Do you know what I mean? It seems to me like we were left short, essentially. Don't get me wrong, listen, when Ange came over and he's done his job, he's done an incredible job. But it's not really the way, like Joe said, it is the way Celtic seem to do business. It's not what I would have liked to hear, basically, as a Celtic fan. I want to hear you say, listen, we chased this guy for ages. He was on our radar. We were working behind the scenes. Yes, Eddie Howe was the main one. That was all headlines. That was all press. This was the guy we wanted. I mean, that's kind of what you want to hear. But for me, it was, we couldn't get Eddie Howe, so we brought this guy in that had experience over in Australia with a national squad. He'd done a few things in Asia. We've seen him work for the City Group. Yeah, he's a guy for me. Like, where do you pull that for? You just need to listen to the interviews previously, Hugh Keevins and Ruffy and all of these other guys when they were first talking about him. Ange Postecoglou, who? Like, do you know what I mean? They were like, what is this guy? What's he going to bring? Listen, we can see what he brought. We were talking about Daizen Maeda. Thank you, Ange. Do you know what I mean?
The story in the interview is a hard one to spin. And I agree everything you're saying. Now, obviously, Celtic were so overt with their courting Eddie Howe. And again, I suppose you've got to be transparent and honest when you're talking to anybody, but it blew my mind. And Ange Postecoglou said he's always been written off, and he was kind of all right with being second, third, fourth, fifth choice. He was just, fuck it, I've got an opportunity, let's go for it. But Paul, I mean, what's your take on this? I was conflicted because half of me turned around and says, when he came out in an interview where he says, I was speaking to Dermot Desmond, and he's telling me, we've been tracking you, and he could tell me about my career, tell me about my style of football. He said, and that was very interesting because it was important to me that they spoke about my football and rather than just my credentials and my trophies and stuff. But so on one hand, I like that they've clearly been looking. There's clearly got information. They've clearly got research on this guy. How quickly you could fire that around. I mean, I can tell you about Demir Tiknas, for example, and I know nothing about him, but I can go and find it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So there's that there. How much research is involved in that? Does it suggest that maybe, like, remember, when we got in Dyla, he was meant to be a number 2. He was meant to be a stepping stone for Neil Lennon. When Neil Lennon didn't want that, and they ended up the manager. So, was he maybe getting courted for a bigger position, a director of football or something, and he fell on our lap and we went, fuck it, let's try him as a manager. So I like that idea that we're looking at folk, we're researching folk, but I also can't get away from the fact that we're Celtic. We are Celtic FC, one of the biggest football and powerhouses in the world, one of the biggest football brands, a club that are turning over 120 odd million a term, and we're signing guys like that onto Zoom calls. That's enough.
Aye, it's. I'm glad that Ange has said what he said because it does shed a bit of light and it has given us this conversation. And many supporters will now be kind of thinking, right, how do we as a club actually? What is our policy? What is our research? What is our kind of stance? And Ange admitted it himself that he knew that Eddie Howe was, and it was long in the media that Eddie Howe had come up here in various issues with backroom staff and he was up for interviews and everything else. So that was definitely a done deal almost. And everything that happened thereafter was fortuitous for us, thank God. But that could have very easily have went another way. Thankfully it never. But it does shed a bit of light on what happens behind the scenes. And that will obviously transfer to player recruitment. I would imagine the same as it's working for managerial positions, you know, and it is a wee bit concerning and alarming, but I hope that maybe Ange coming out and kind of airing that wee bit of slightly kind of, I don't want to say dirty washing, but that wee bit of info the club will know about him saying that, and, you know,
how the perception might be.
Yeah, it hopefully is a wee kind of like wake-up call, and then, you know, the procedures and the policies for how we go about recruitment really does need to. It's been said before, and the John McGinn thing always comes back to just sticks in my craw that we should all day long. Every time I see him, I think he should be in the hoops, and it just never going to leave me because I absolutely love watching him play and what he does in that midfield. Anyway, but the whole point in question here is that we need to kick up our own arse in terms of our policies and how we work and what framework that we work to.
Yeah, and yourself, Joe, do you think, what's your thoughts? Does this shed, we're not sitting here to, sound the alarm and panic. As but as we're doing well, we're spending money and we've been successful. But in terms of this, we always talk about the old boys act and things being a bit lazy, Joe. I don't know. See, at football level, how much, I know he's the majority shareholder. I get that. He's the highest shareholder. But is that normal policy that you put on Dermot Desmond or the other clubs equivalent to Dermot Desmond first, and he'd be the guy who'd be speaking to it and then saying, "Oh, well, I quite like you, mate, so I'm going to go and speak to these guys and they'll run it by them." So indirectly, listen, he's the guy with the most money, shareholder. He's if he thinks he's shite, he'll say
if he
he's
wants
shite, and that probably dies there, doesn't it? Yeah. So we always talk about deals being penned by the hand of Dermot Desmond because he's wanted it, or we talk about that's a Brendan signing, he wants it. Are we quite closed and limited in how we actually approach things as a club?
Perhaps we're actually more so old-fashioned. There was a phrase that I've always said and loved, is that some of the best deals in life have been written on the back of a fag packet. It's as simple as that, right? One of the ones like, no worries, sound, yeah, on you come. Some of these ones have worked out phenomenally, some of them haven't, of course, but I've always thought that the best ones did. When it comes to a manager, I might go against the grain with some people here, but when it comes to a manager, if we're doing these last minute sort of deals to get them in, I'm not as fussed about it. Right? See if the research has been put in and their performances speak for themselves anyway. I'm not as worried about that. It's when we do it with players and we lose out and we end up in bidding wars and everything like that we spoke about before. You're not going to end up in a bidding war about a manager who has been denied a seat at almost every team in Europe and is now thinking whether there was an insider who knew he was looking at League One, League Two, whatever, then that's another matter and for something that's way above our pay grade. But clearly it's worked out in our favour in that instance, and it's because someone has put in the hard work at the front end. They could have been watching him for an entire season for all we know. We won't ever know that. They could have been watching him for 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. But maybe they had seen the potential 2, 3 years previous and they thought, that could be our next manager, but they didn't at the time because of Lennon or Dylan or whoever it may have been, So for me, it's not as big a concern when it comes to managers. Do they kind of deals all along? But as you said, it touches then on the fact that, that seems like the way that we're doing deals with players as well. Maybe that's why some players can't be convinced to come here too. And that's the worrying factor for me. That's the worrying factor.
Yourself, Paddy, to close on that, as I said, obviously we've been sitting there and we landed on our feet with both, but it's just the nature of it being quite last minute. Yeah, it worked out. As I say, it's retrospective stuff here, but it's just talking about the way that we work. And then, of course, folk were also arguing the same with Brendan Rodgers. No doubt in my mind, we says we sampled managers. It was, for me, one of the, if not the outstanding candidate that was available.
Yeah.
There was other managers that were potentially out there that could have been brought in, just throw out like a Graham Potter, for example. Now, I know that might not be his cup of tea, but I'm just saying there was other players there. But once again, we went back to the address book, or Dermot's went back to the address book, or had the deciding factor, to be honest. Is it just a wee bit sort of, does it play into this notion that fans have got where it's just a handful of folk make decisions?
Kinda. Like Joe says, I mean, it's a decision that worked out for us. It really did. If signing Ange goes wrong, who's getting their arse felt for it? Is it Dermot?
Right.
Is it other members of the board? I mean, what do you do there? Did they just go, "Oh, sorry, that was my bad, boys. Let's bring in Brendan again"? Do you know what I mean? Was Brendan always the one that was going to come back? Was he going down there? I feel like there was something in that. That wasn't just a turn around and a quick phone call and like, "Listen, mate, do you want to come back?" I feel like that was always on the cards. And you could tell that the way Brendan come back in. So I do feel like there's a plan in place. I feel like there is something there. I did say before, obviously, about Eddie Howe. Everything was leaning towards that. And then when Newcastle job became available, it was a no-brainer for him. So, yes, it's one of the ones. Where does the decision fall at the end of the day if it doesn't go to plan. Because Ange came in, done a fantastic job, and left as a hero. I mean, he done the job. He done absolutely fantastic. And then we got obviously Brendan in. So for me, the decisions, I don't know. Brendan Rodgers coming in was a fantastic decision. It really was. And I just feel like Dermot Desmond shouldn't be the one that's making the decisions. He's the chairman. He's not even the chairman. He's the basically owner. He's not the footballing side of it. He's basically the money. It should be the board that's making all of these decisions. And if he's the guy that's out there making the phone calls to bring these guys in, then I don't quite see how that happens. Actually, it's just it doesn't quite.
Well, it should be side note there. Let us know what your thoughts are on that interview if you've seen it. As I said, it's just a wee tidbit there that gets thrown out and quite interesting. And as I said, when we're sitting here talking about how we operate and what we expect versus what we might get, it just seemed as if it seemed relevant through a wee sort of insight, at least into how things were done there. Maybe things have changed. Who knows? We'll soon find out.
When we're talking about maybe appointments that get made via, contacts and phone books, we've got away with it and all with Casper. If that turned out to be, another wee right, I know a guy that's looking for a club, brilliant goalkeeper, we've got away with it. So I think we've got, if that is the way things have worked, and in football's, there's a lot of ins and outs. If we've got away with that amount, then we've used up all our tokens. I think it's time to go back to the other methods.
Absolutely. Well, let's get back to the players in the action, if you want to call it that. More on players going out than there is coming in, to be honest. That's probably expected. We're looking to trim the fat. We were quite successful at that over the course of last season. Now, Paddy, I'll talk to you about this one because it's a guy that we were sitting here singing the praises about, and it's Malik Nawrocki. Now, there's talk of him moving back home to Poland to Bogdan Szczesny, who finished 4th in the Polish league. And I had a look, 18 appearances in 2 seasons for Celtic, mate. Since that move, we know there's been some injuries, fitness and things like that, but 18 in 2 seasons is absolutely barren. 3 this season and 3 very good performances where we thought there might be somewhere, but they're wanting to send him back to Poland. More importantly, they want to send him back on loan. Now, what is the point here? Firstly, Bogdan Szczesny, they are not going to be giving you anywhere near the 4 odd million that we paid for him. Even if they want an option to buy, you are putting him out hiding to nothing. You're putting him out on loan. A loan to Poland, what if anything is that going to do to service Nawrocki for Celtic? Because I don't think, if you played a worldie over there, it's not going to make a jot of a difference. Maybe makes him more sellable to one of the bigger Polish teams like, Lech Poznan or back to what you call them, it came for Legia. But even that, it's not. They're not going to spend big money. Is this just a sign of where his career is? Or does it even concern you? And I use the term concern. That means we get him out on loan and recreated. Stephen Welsh comes back, even though teams want to buy him.
Yeah, listen, for me, it's sad. You watch back the interview that Paul done with Frank McAvenny as well, and the first thing Frank McAvenny says in it is, "What does Nawrocki need to do to get in that team?" You said that there, 3 games, and after the 3 games, I have no idea why he wasn't in the squad. He's been decent enough. Yeah, at the start he was in and out of the squad, little injuries, little niggles here and there, and we come on here and we spoke about him and kind of laughed about it, saying he was made of glass, and you're like, what is this guy? What is a Nawrocki? And I think he's kind of grown into it a little bit. I'd like to see a bit more of him. I probably rate him a better defender than Scales. I would rate him a little bit better than Trusty for what I've seen in some performances as well. Trusty, I feel, has always got a mistake in him. Doesn't attack the ball as much as I would like him to. But I feel like Nawrocki's, he would be the one that I would have in there. So the fact that they're looking at selling him out to, like you say, a team that's sitting 4th in the Polish league, it's a no-brainer. Like I just don't see what we gain for that. There's nothing in it. There really isn't. Whether it's to go out there and get game time, it could be just to go out there, get some game time, get some hours under him, see how he manages in that league, and then see if he comes into Brendan's plans. Because I feel like
we know how he's performed. We know how he's performed in that league with a better team.
That's why we bought him. Yeah.
So it's bizarre. I mean, Paul, what's your thoughts on this? Is there any benefit whatsoever? Of course, there'll be the player for getting to play football and being back in his homeland. That'll probably be a lot better for him. But what's the benefit to Celtic, if any, here?
It's a yo-yo. It's a really strange set of circumstances, one that I don't think we've seen for a long time, if ever, where we've got a player who's come in with a reasonable fee. Either something's happened, the manager doesn't fancy him all of a sudden. Maybe he was signed by Ange, potentially. Is it, is it not been a Brendan signing? Was it Brendan that signed him?
Well, it came under his tenure, but it was one of these kind of almost agreed situations.
That's what I mean. So it's kind of been as if, and the manager's no fancied him. Clearly, he's hardly played any football. 18 appearances in 2 seasons. The guy needs some kind of security in terms of where he's going to be playing his football, and we just seem to be pissing him about, for want of another word. I would love to see him in the team. I would love to see us keeping him, but I don't think the club or the manager wants to keep him. Doesn't see the value in keeping him. When he's played, he looks commanding. As you say, very right, Paddy, he's grown into games, and there's been so much chopping and changing in our back four at times during that season in particular, where different defenders are playing. Somebody gets dropped out of injury, and then there was Kasper Schmeichel at one point had 2 different defences in front of him in 2 different sets of games. That can't be an easy environment, despite being a professional footballer, to just come in and hit the ground running. So I feel really sorry for him, and I hope that there is some kind of way for him to stay with us, but it looks as if that's diminished.
Yeah, Joe, in terms of this, just to wrap up this Narotsky situation, we are surprisingly inundated with defenders. Remember, we've still got Lager Bielka on our books.
Yeah.
Now, he's out at 20, and again, they look interested to sign him. We've got Welsh, who's out. Michelin want to sign him, and I believe there's other interest in him. And now Narotsky. Now, we're assuming that Welsh will go to one of the suitors.
Yeah.
And that Lager Bielka will go to one of the suitors. However, if that doesn't happen and they come back, not just the fact that we're going to be bloated with guys that we don't want, Narotsky, it appears, included, does that hinder us from actually getting in somebody that we really want? For example, the young Serbian guy from Red Star that Paul and I were talking about the other day.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's like Paul was saying there. You're going to end up then with Kasper or even Sinisalo at some point, sitting there in the space of 3 or 4 games, having 3 different sets of defenders and everything. We know Carter Vickers ain't going anywhere. Trusty, by the looks of things, isn't going anywhere, and Scales either. So Scales I would keep on. Trusty would be the one that I would drop as quickly as possible. I just don't think he's been good enough, and I would keep Narovsky in the hope that I say in the hope that Welsh and your other fella end up at the teams respectively who are after them as well. So that would be my game plan if I was Brendan personally. Whether this plan is to get him out on loan back to Poland to either satisfy even Narovsky's own needs, maybe he has family, sick family or problems back home that he really needs help with, and that's part of the deal. We'll never know that, and I hope that is, if that something like that is the case, that is all well. But maybe even the plan is to get him over there, get him playing a lot more games, and therefore seeing if his injuries can hold up in that league and can take the slight beating and everything like that he may face more of over here, to then have him back for next season and have him playing more games. Maybe that's the deal. Whose contract's up at the end of next year? So that's one thing to consider as well.
Possible, but Paddy, just to finish on this defender debacle, we're looking at Milosavljevic from Red Star. The chap being again a high fee. He's a young lad, very young lad. 17, great promise there, and that's another deal that could be in around that 8 million pocket. Forget the fees, just talking here. But this bloatedness with guys that could be coming back, it's imperative that we need to get in reinforcements. If these guys are hanging about and collecting a wage with this bloated squad, we need to get rid of him. Do you think that would stop Celtic, even though it is clear as day? You know, my mum could see that we need a new centre half, and she's nearly gone blind. You know, but would would it be a case that it might put Celtic off, where they'll say, right, well, we'll try and sell Lagerbielke first. We'll try and get Welsh off the books. You know, but is our kind of propensity to hold on to just every player like that maybe going to be a rundown?
It seems to be done. It's back to that thing what I keep saying. We need to get the business done quick. You can't wait on the sale of Lagerbielke and the sale of Welsh to bring this boy in. It's a position that you've identified that we need to strengthen. And this boy ticks the boxes. Do you know what I mean? He's a unit. He's good at going and attacking the ball in the box. He's only 17, but there's a lot of experience in there. Do you know what I mean? He's played at a decent level as well. And it's one of the ones. Is that a project player? Do you then keep somebody? What I'd like to see then is Welsh and Lagerbielke getting sold. We keep Narotsky and bring this lad in and have him stay in there, watching these guys, learning off them, seeing what he has to do to break into that Celtic squad, and then when he gets his chance, grab it by the balls. And it's a position that we need. We really need to strengthen it. He seems to be like a left-sided as well, for what I've seen. So it fits right into what we've got, because Carter Vickers, for me, is the guy who's going to stay there. Like they said, he's the fridge. He's the one. He's made a few mistakes here and there this season. He's looked off it at points, but at the end of the day, he's probably the best centre-back that we've got. So having somebody, another, who's going to partner him is ideally what you're looking for. And yeah, listen, whether it be the young 17-year-old, whether it be Narotsky, or whether it be Trusty, who we brought in again for, like you say, 6 million. We're throwing these £8 million bids out there constant. That seems to be the new one for us. That seems to be, we're not penny pinching. We're not going in with the 2 million, the 3 million anymore. It seems to be going for. It might be inflation, mate, and we've got the money. You look across the city; they've got a massive 20 million to spend. That's 2 players for us. Do you know what I mean? Well, they're looking for a full squad.
Inaccurate. They're going to get a quote decent portion of the 20 million. So I don't know what that is. Yeah. That's
by the time they buy the brogues and all that kind of stuff, they'll be out. Do you know what I mean? They'll be. Yeah, listen, well, that is what it is.
By the time they've paid
for
the
me,
base,
it's an opening. You need to bring this guy in. Yeah, you need to bring this guy in.
We'll fly through, we'll whistle stop through the remainder ones. The drama, the big story, not of the summer so far, is Willie Wonty, Taylor, and it appears he's going over to PAOK, who finished third last season. Over there, he's going to get a nice wee holiday and a nice wee wage. It appears that one is going to be done. 2 years with an option to take an extension to 1 more extra year. And again, apparently, they're also interested in bringing home Louis Palmer. Take them both. I'm all right. I'm all good about that. But on that situation of Taylor leaving, some folk would want to keep him about. The manager wanted to keep him about. It was clear that we were talking about we need cover. Kieran Tierney is injured, Paul, and we don't know the severity yet. Hopefully it's a precautionary thing. But it's just a quick reminder, a stark reminder that at this moment in time, Kieran Tierney's your left back, and that's it.
I said it on a video months ago that I wasn't wanting to again put a jinx on anything. Appears I maybe did, but I did say that I hope Kieran, as much as he's going to be very welcome, isn't all eggs in one basket, and that if all the rumblings with Greg Taylor prove to be correct and he moves on, which again looks as if it's happening, then we have to have something else in place. So if we've been caught and acting in our usual slow kind of manner with this, then we deserve what we get. Really, we should have been far more astute. Kieran's record with injuries has been better than usual, but there we go. We just need to hope it's nothing major. He comes in when the season starts and he's got a few games in him and he's rested. The Greg Taylor one, he's going to move on. Thanks for your service, but we surely should have something in place, having seen all this evolving.
Yeah. Joe, does that mean that your favourite pal, Jeffrey Schlupp's going to get taken up on that deal to keep about? But more to the point, we're talking about the need to get in this defensive midfielder. We're talking about this additional centre half. I think left back is a position that we're going to have to sign. I would want 2 on top of Kieran Tierney. Now, that just seems completely unlikely. You know, the name that we and Paul looked at the other day was a young Japanese boy, Djurgården Keita Kisuke. And they're talking £5 to £6 million for a young guy that's had 44 career appearances, but is one of these guys that is considered to be on the up. Is this the kind of situation where do it? If you're interested, go and do it. Because I don't want to see Jeffrey Schlupp as the plug and then just another.
I don't think Jeffrey Schlupp's got it. First of all, I think he's managed to, in a way, blag his way into the team, and you know, done a good job of convincing the higher ups. Maybe he's a bit of a salesman in the past, something like that. So yeah, the young Japanese boy, take the risk, take the chance. Why not? If he's on the up, or even if you think he's on the up, he's a young lad. You still have a chance to fine tune him and make him what you want in that position. Exactly. So where's the consideration in it for me? I'm going, just do it. Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Do something.
Aye, make the deal, make it cheap enough, and it's worth it.
Well,
just date it.
Just date, just go and sign them, and that's the thing. We need it. It's a reminder. Hopefully, touch wood, it's just a minor tweak, and you don't want to take any further risks, right? I believe that Kieran Tierney is likely to be unveiled at the 1st of next month. That's the date that keeps getting flung about. But it's one thing's for sure: we need to get cover in here. We need a lot of defensive cover. I even would argue, I could pick at least 4. If we were signing, I'd sign at least 4 defenders. That's ideal stuff. I get that. But you also need a proper bit of competition for Alistair Johnson. You need another dependable centre half, and you need a minimum of 2 at least top quality. Kieran Tierney being one of them, you need at least another quality left back, a young or at least mid-age kind of 26, 27-year-old experienced good option there. And then, of course, you can then start looking at filler options where that's your Jeffrey Schlupp, but no, you can't have Tierney and him as your 1-2. It's just simply not going to work. It's suicidal.
Liam Scales?
They're never moving him over. They've done it before. All we're doing is moving around the pieces that we've had for seasons before. We need to freshen it up. We really need to do it. And that's going to coming back to some of the other things we'll just briefly touch on. The last one was we need a striker. And of course, we spoke about Youssef El Kashati from Morocco. And he was obviously playing. He's at, Telstar. Now, didn't know this at the time, but it came out that he'd agreed a contract as such with Hanover in Germany. But he's since turned it down and says he's no interested, Paddy, because he wants to play for a team, top-tier European side, who are going to be playing in Europe. The Celtic, according to ESPN in Holland, are watching him in the stands. And again, this is a guy's now out of contract, a guy that could be costing you about £2 million. Nominal fee, great record, career overall, 190 appearances, 83 goals, 20 assists. No bad. Take a punt on that.
I would, definitely. You've seen other names linked there as well. I think Kyogo's been thrown in. Giacomakis has been thrown in. I've seen loads of links.
Nope.
The Giacomakis thing for me, basically, he made a comment saying that he wishes he'd stayed at Celtic. Obviously, the grass isn't green on the other side. Basically, comments to that kind of extent. And we've seen that with Jota coming back and everything else. And yeah, we're getting linked with all of these kind of people. That Moroccan lad, you look at the stats and you look at the kind of type of player that he is. He's a kind of, again, like another player who's been linked with, Majowski. He's a very similar player to that. Can attack the balls, got a bit of pace about him, good in the air. That's what we need. The amount of balls that we put into that box and you see your striker nowhere near it, that's what frustrates us. And I think it frustrated us quite a lot last season when you're talking about Daizen Maeda. Yes, he scored 20 goals, but that 20 could have been 40 with the amount of crosses and the amount of balls that we put in that box. And that's why it's so frustrating for us. That's why Celtic fans were calling him out every single week and you're saying, oh my God, what is he doing? He's garbage, is this, is that, blah, blah. Guy got 20 goals in the season. His first season. His first full season, let's be honest. So, listen, good pre-season under Daizen Maeda. Going in, if he wants to be Celtic's main striker, he needs competition. because he's not got that at Celtic
100%.
at the minute. So this guy
Joe,
coming in, I think would push him.
Aye, I mean, Joe, see, Paddy mentioned a name there that was thrown out there as well, and that's Bojan Miovski. It's not worked out for him, and they're going to let him go now. You're talking almost half the price. They're wanting about 3 million, 3.5 million for him, if rumours be believed. Mentioned Del Kashati there, cost me about £2 million. Now, undoubtedly, the marquee signing, if we're going for a striker, that I say marquee based simply on the value and the fact he's been chased, that the fans are going to expect would be Matthias Christegaard. But we say time over, the Celtic have got a place for 3 good strikers, or 3, even 4 if you're keeping around Johnny Kenny. Aside from Christegaard, which we're not going to mention until there's more mentioned around that happening, Bojan Miovski's an interesting one. Now, we always talk about lazy stuff like going back the way and bringing back players and stuff like that. We were very interested in Bojan Miovski. Is this an opportunity for Celtic to revisit that, and would you revisit it, to get him for lesser fee? Because let's be honest, there was the Euro rivals tax getting put on as a wee bit. Obviously went and signed for £6 million, which was good value for money, and you could argue, well, Celtic could have paid that, but I think they would have been harder ball to play with them. Bojan Miovski or El Kashati, either or, and if you were to take one over the two, what would you go with?
For me, it would be Miovski. And for the fee now, it makes so much sense. Because why would you not? For that's pennies for a good striker that we've already. Well, that's a difficult question that we couldn't ever answer, really. See, unless you're talking about likes of prime Ronaldos and Messi's and everything like that, you can't ever say that someone's going to level you up without having them in the squad and play a full season or near to a full season, because you need to see how they interact, get on with, and really interact with the team as well. So I don't think that you can ever say someone will definitely level you up or anything like that. It's always going to be a 50-50. But I think the risk to reward factor is much greater. You've got low risk but great reward if it pays off as well, with the fact that he's only asking, say, 3.5 for him as well. So for me, it's definitely.
So Miovski's got the experience in the league, he's got experience in the SPL. So that's what you're looking at there for me, 100%.
He looked good in the league as well. He's international player experience. He ticks every box. I would be Miovski all day long.
Yeah. Well, Paul, to wrap it up, again, talking about potential laziness and returning to the same well again and looking for it, I think these are two that are just complete and utter. We'll fly over them. Are just speculation. Aye. First one is obviously Christopher Ajer, and this comes off the back of chat that Brentford are meant to be interested in signing. Down, so we say Nicholas Kuhn. Now, obviously, we know back to January there was the talk, a couple of teams interested in him. Newcastle were mentioned, and the likes seemed to dip his form. Now the word is Brentford are meant to be interested in him. The word being, or the term being meant to be, nothing absolutely solid. And as part of that, they describe as a slightly out of favour Ajer, which I don't get, because he actually played 24 times for them. a season in between where I think he had some injuries and he was a bit out of the picture. Before that, he played about the same again. He's got a contract to 2028. Now, this might change because he was drifting out the squad, or he was getting appearances, but substitution appearances, etc. But Desire, is he a guy that will be rewriting history, Paul, if that's something? Firstly, on the Kuhn thing, do you see anything in that, and do you think that Brentford's a team that would want to go from? Bear in mind that Thomas Frank's going to end up at Spurs.
The body language experts will and have analysed Kuhn, even in Trophy Day, saying he looked as if he was checked out. We've seen his performances post-Europe, and a lot of the kind of experts with the body language and his form, I must say, did point to the fact that it did look as if he's elsewhere.
I into his social media, the standard thanks for helping us in the season part.
That's just looks as if there will be a move. I don't see it being to Brentford, and I don't see Ajer coming back. I think that is just some devilment and some lazy journalism at its best. But I like Big Ire, but no, we should be looking to up that level.
Yeah.
I see a move for Kuhn.
Aye.
You think so?
I think look, for me, it would be Germany. I really do. I think it would be back to Germany for him. I don't see him going to a Premier League side. I don't think that's the right move for him, shall we say? But listen,
no disrespect him. No disrespect him. I just don't think he's got those levels in him.
No, I don't either.
Nicholas Kuhn was very effective for Celtic in the first half of the season.
Absolutely.
And fleeting appearances in Europe. Let's be honest here. Fleeting Bayern Munich, RB Leipzig, and I know you can say big teams, but the rest of them, anonymous. You're playing against that sort of level on the reg if you go down to the Premier League, and he's too predictable in Scotland that I don't think he can go down to there. But in terms of the ire, it's all pie in the sky stuff. But let's just say, because we know that Brendan liked him, let's just say, Paddy, that it was a player that was genuinely up for debate and could potentially come back. Are we in danger of just falling back in? He always want to, or not, I know we're not, but linked to be ex-players. I mean, who's next? Edward?
Cool.
I know.
Where is it?
Listen, it's been constant. Anybody that was an ex-player that was Irish that plays for Leicester, we've said this all before, everybody's been linked to us. And now, because obviously we brought back Jota, it just seems like Jota and Tierney. There you go. There's two players
Anything's
that
possible.
We sold both for 25 million. There's 50 million pounds worth of players that we sold and we brought them back in for 10 million. Basically, it's ridiculous. It's madness. So listen, it's good business. But for me, if you're going to be bringing Christopher Ajer back in, then I don't think he's the answer to what we need. I really don't. I think he was decent. Listen, he was a good, solid defender. He'd done a job for us at that time.
Is he better than anything that would? Is he better than any of the alternative options? Again, I don't think it's going to happen. But just conversations, is he better than Scales, Nawrocki, Welsh, and Trusty?
Aye, but
I
don't think he's. Aye, 100%. He is. He's a better defender. I'd probably rather have him in there than any of the rest of them. But I don't think he's. I don't want to go back to that. Do you know what I mean? Yes, he would be better than them, but for me, I think we got to go better than him. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And in terms of things as well that ain't going to happen, I'll let you have the final one, Joe. This notion out of France that the dream's over at Rennes for Kyogo and he's going to be going elsewhere, pastures new, and Celtic are one of a number of teams that are meant to be interested. This is just garbage. This is, I think, lazy French journalism, but they've just went, oh, where did he come from? He came from there, and they took Jota back, so it must be happening. And then, of course, our media outlets are going to pick up because that's just the nature of the slow summertime news. But firstly, just to give it a breath, would you dare, or have we closed that book?
No, I wouldn't do it. I think the way that he left was, I wouldn't go as far as saying unprofessional, but it was just a little bit unfriendly, shall we say. It was kind of out the blue for most people. Obviously, there'll be those who have had the inkling or whatever for X amount of time.
It for Paul. He just bought a tap.
Exactly.
Paul's like, come back.
And so just got aside. Exactly.
Paul put the tap back up.
Get it out the frame. So, for me, it's just stupidity. And as you say, it's the French media outlets have obviously went, oh, well, Celtic took back the last player, so they'll obviously take back this one. Don't be stupid. Don't be French about it.
Has he even had his shoulder fixed yet? His shoulder?
No,
if they fixed his shoulder, we'll take him back.
Reaction, man.
So, what about yourself, Paul? I just finally, I know you like the romance of that, but
I know.
Good servant at the time, but I think it was pretty clear that the Brendan system wasn't working to him.
No, that's true. Under Ange, he was explosive, he was dynamic, he was an absolute terrorist to defenders and other teams. Every team that he played.
I'm glad you followed that up with two defenders. I was like, what?
But yeah, this notion that we just keep bringing back ex-players is we've benefited in terms of the Jota impact. But no. Again, I think we have to go and blaze a trail for fresh talent and spend good money instead of, what it does do is it shows and it underlines and underpins that you go and leave Celtic, you better have a good club to go to because they're all coming back and they'll want to come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, listen, that's us, guys. We have went through what has been circling on Celtic social media and rumours and everything. Some of it total absolute mince, I think you'll agree with it, but some of it maybe a wee bit of meat in the bones. I just want to see Celtic moving soon. We've only got a few weeks before teams back and they're in training. It would be nice, would it not, to have, other than, I know it's a fresh face technically, it'd be nice to have a few, one or two other than Tierney. I'd like to have a new signing and a sapling, insert new player name here sort of video with Kieran Tierney in it, but we can dream. We can dream. But what do you think, guys?
Yeah.
Listen, if I was to ask you right now, just for fun, how many weeks from now is it going to be, forget Kieran Tierney, that we're going to get an actual signing, like a signing, something that's not been mentioned?
When's the window shut?
Well, the window is actually, we're in a sort of like, I guess it's a small mini window type thing because you've got the European Club stuff's on the go at the moment. So that's up and running. I believe it opens up on the 16th, I want to say, proper.
Yeah.
And then it runs through to its usual close time. Yep. So that's yep. So yeah, I was right. 16th until the 1st of September.
So I'll go first signing, 1st of September.
I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say first signing within the next 5 weeks.
Oh, fuck it. I thought you were going to say 5 days. I know, you're killing me, man.
5 weeks.
End of August.
1st of July, I think. 1st of July.
Oh, man.
That doesn't count because that's going to be Tierney.
Aye. Round about the same time. It'll be a Tierney Fridays.
Tierney and
Tierney,
Ireland.
double.
Tierney, Edward, and Aya.
Aye.
It's up.
Makes you wonder.
Yes, that's that. Cedric Boyat in the back.
Aye, go for it. Why not?
Anyway, listen, guys, that's us. Thank you very much to everybody for joining us. I know that it's a bit of a slow time for being Celtic fans, but as always, we'll continue to do these wee weekly roundups. We'll bring everything else. But however, if Celtic shock us and something happens, we'll pop up and we'll talk about it. I know, shock, horror, oh, imagine it. And of course, we've been working on some other content that will start to drip out in the sort of coming weeks to kind of make this barren time that is no football, the close season, just that wee bit more bearable. So anyway, take care of yourselves. Thanks for following us. Continue to get us on our socials. Continue to go on the TikTok. Get yourself onto jimscullion.co.uk. Get some of those top quality prints from the Artful Codgers exhibition, as modelled by the beautiful Paul down there. You could get one of those Daizen Maeda Warrior ones and just hope that if you do get it, it doesn't jinx them and he stays with us. That'd be nice.
Exactly.
Until next time, take care of yourselves. And as always, Paddy, tell them.
Hail, hail, guys.
See you later. Bye. Boom.